Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here on Play on GAA. Today it's myself, Seamus Brady. I have Luke Payton here with me, and I also have Matt Hurley, known as the GAAStatsman, here with us to do a review of the Allianz Football League Division 1 in this episode here on Play on GAA. Matt, how's it going?
Grand, Seamus, yourself. College is busy at the moment for all of us, really.
Oh yeah, swamped out of it. Luke, you're a lucky man. You're out of college yourself now.
Yeah, working away, working a lot too. So it's busy life.
Yeah, no. Well, in this video anyway, we're going to give a grade to each county in Division 1 on their performance in the Allianz Football League Division 1 of 2022. We're going to include some positives and some negatives that each county can take from the league. But unfortunately for me and Luke, as Dublin fans, not many positives to be taken here. But anyway, we'll start with the first team. We're going to be doing it alphabetically. And Luke, I'll come to you first for Armagh. So going in really at the start of the league, I mean, Armagh probably would have been looking, a lot of people would have been thinking that they'd be finishing kind of bottom half rather than pushing arguably for a league final at the start. But they got off to that brilliant win against Dublin, followed it off with another great win against Tyrone. What did you make of them this season?
Yeah, they. I suppose that after their start, they made victory against Dublin in the first round. It was a fantastic start for them, and from there they just went from strength to strength. Kind of towards the end, I think they tailed off a little bit as well. But look, they found some really top quality players. Some big positives like Tiernan Kelly in particular. Reno Neal announced himself kind of on the big stage as well. But I think, look, they'll be delighted with how competitive they were in every game. But maybe a little bit concerned, I think, about how they tailed off towards the end and in games that they probably should have won, that they didn't come out on the right side of it as well. So look, after a really positive start with some really nice players in that team as well, but then kind of towards the end of it, just didn't have enough to push on to the league final, probably, which their early league form probably suggested that they deserved.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Matt, would you have anything to add to that about Armagh's season?
Look, the league was always going to be a test for Armagh, really, but I suppose Ulster would be, the divine test, really. They haven't won an Ulster Championship since 2008. They haven't even got to a final since 2008, so this was a stepping stone. I was kind of disappointed in Armagh in the last game, to be honest with you. I know Ulster's important, but getting to a league final in Croke Park, that would have been brilliant for the likes of Reno Neal or Jason Duffy to get a bit of exposure in Croke Park. Quite disappointed in that way, and look at the Donegal game now. Reno Neal apparently is going to be suspended for that one. So, that could be a very, very tough game for them coming down the home stretch there. But I'd be positive if I was an Armagh game going to the qualifiers, even if they do lose to Donegal.
Yeah, I think the one thing that kind of takes the gloss off their first two games is the fact that when they beat Dublin, then 3 or 4 teams went on to beat Dublin as well. So that kind of took the gloss off that for me. And then as well as that, they beat a Tyrone side, which we know are coming fresh off the beach, like fresh off their holidays. So those two victories don't compare to if they had beaten the Dublin of last year or the Tyrone of last year. So I do think that while those victories definitely were impressive, I don't think they were as impressive as we initially thought they were. But that being said, I still think that they were good, way better than I thought they would be. So I'm thinking around a B+, A- for Armagh this season.
Yeah, look, the issue I'd have with that is that in the big game, the last game against Donegal, a dead rubber game pretty much, that then they got embroiled into that situation where, look, 3 of their best players are going to be missing for the championship. So I think, look, it's all about championship, and I'd be hugely swayed by the outcome of what happened in that last game, and that they're going to miss 3 games for the game that they've been preparing for the whole time. They got themselves involved in an incident at the end, and look, 3 like Mackin won't be around, Reno Neal, and like the last person escaping me at the moment, but it's a huge. Oh yeah, Stephen Campbell as well. So it's going to be a huge kind of challenge for them against Donegal now, considering that like without those 3 players, and I'd be kind of down towards B- direction now because of that game. Look, they tailed off towards the end, and I think those are huge losses as well for championship, and that it was just a needless thing to get involved in, and that's why I think it's kind of left the league in a completely sour note for Armagh.
Yeah, and Matt, would you be hovering around the B kind of area?
I probably would, yeah. A- as you said there, Seamus. I'd probably go around there, to be honest with you, with Armagh.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think to compromise, I think we'll say B+ for Armagh this. Next team up, Matt, I'll come to you to start this one off. Donegal, probably the most inconsistent team in the country. I mean, they had some great wins. Tyrone was the one that stood out for me. But then they had that game against Monaghan where they just looked like they didn't turn up. Then they beat Armagh in the last game to, secure their survival in Division 1. But that should never have been an issue. It was a weird league for Donegal again.
To be honest, Donegal have done this for years. They've been an inconsistent team. They win one game, they perform well, and then they perform terribly in the next game. Like, you look at the Kerry game as well. I know it was in Fitzgerald Stadium, but it was a bit of a poor performance in that game as well. And even Dublin and Croke Park, they didn't really cover themselves in much glory other than Paddy McBrearty's performance. So I think a fair one for Donegal is probably a C, around expected, but an average enough league campaign. Well, I predicted Donegal to get relegated at the start of the league, so according to that, it might be a B. But look, Conor O'Donnell was excellent in the league, scored 111, so he's taken the mantle a bit off Michael Murphy and Paddy McBrearty. But other than O'Donnell, I think only Murphy and McBrearty really hit the lights out when they played for Donegal. So that's the same old worry for Donegal, in my opinion. Relying on, the usual suspects really in Murphy and McBrearty. But I think they'd be confident going into the Armagh game, given the suspensions we mentioned in the Armagh team with Brian O'Neill. I think Armagh might play defensive in that game. Donegal might go a bit more attacking. Maybe that could leave gaps at the back for them. I'm not entirely sure, but it'd be interesting to see what happens in the championship now, because Donegal, they need to reach an All-Ireland semi-final sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I agree. And Luke, any positives, kind of negatives that Donegal can take out of the league for yourself?
Yeah, look, I completely agree, Matt. I think it's a C. It was there was probably not a whole lot to take from the league, really, from Donegal, and that there was games probably that they would have been expected to win that they didn't win, and then I suppose the other games that they kind of ground out results, I suppose, against Armagh and stuff, and then that game against Tyrone that they won as well. They weren't given much chance in that game as well. So yeah, it was a funny old kind of league campaign for them as well. Look, I think for them going into championship now, they'll be delighted. But like, with the fact that Armagh are missing those players as well, look, they'll be missing McFadden Ferry and Neil McGee, but they know that they can just slot Brendan McCole into fullback now, and I think he had a really, really good league campaign, particularly that Dublin game where the outcome of the end of that game will be absolutely huge. And look, for Donegal, it's another year to stay up in the league. They blooded a few new players as well, and yeah, look, it was just another year where kind of not too much happening for them as well. But look, they're still in the division, and they've developed a few more players, and they're going to the championship with a few wins under their belt now. They finished the league better than they started, so I think, yeah, look, a C probably is pretty fair there.
Yeah, I agree with what you said there. And then moving on from Donegal to Dublin, and come back to you, Luke, for this one. Obviously, probably the worst league campaign that we've ever seen from Dublin. Whereabouts are they coming in at here?
Yeah, look, I wouldn't go complete fail. I'd say maybe a D. I think that, look, obviously relegation is it was kind of incomprehensible really at the start of the league, that I don't think anybody predicted that they would be relegated. You can make kind of small excuses in that there was plenty of injuries at the start, and when players started to come back in, form did improve a bit. Like, the 2 wins came with full squads, but look, they knew that if they went up to Monaghan and they got a win in that game, they would have stayed up, and they weren't able to do it. So ultimately, look, it is a failure, and that team was just minus John Small, Conor Callan. Other than that, it was full strength. So look, it does show that there is something seriously wrong with Dublin at the moment, that they're just not fully coming through right. But there are positives too, and that, look, it's another league campaign to blood players like Michael Shield and Goal got a few games in a row at the end, kind of as well. Look, Lee Gannon's the big positive, I think, for Dublin, in that I'd fully expect him to be starting this year. And look, on the basis of the last couple of games, I think he's one of Dublin's top players at the moment. I think he's performing at a level that the other lads just aren't really reaching right now. And he gives something that they're really lacking, which is like pace as well, coming from that half back line. So it's, look, the likes of him are really needed. Keane Murphy as well. He looked good in cornerback too. So they did get some fellas through. And do you know what? I don't think it's actually the end of the world going down to Division 2 next year, because what Dublin need is a full rebuild, I think. And that, I think what we're going to see after this year will be the likes of kind of Fitzsimons, Cooper, those players stepping away and stuff. And Dublin will need a full league campaign next year to blood all those replacements. There's plenty of lads coming through in the under-20s that they just need a full league campaign to get used to playing at that level. And look, Division 2 is the best place to do it, because look, you see what happened with Galway and stuff. They've been given that year to do it, and look at all the new players that they brought through as well. So look, it's for a team like Dublin with their resources, with their population, everything as well, it's pretty unforgivable to be in Division 2, but I don't think it's the end of the world though. And so look, I'd go with a D.
Yeah, you made some very good points there. I mean, about the fact that Galway have rebuilt, and Mayo are another example that I'd look at. When they went down, they brought through the likes of Rory Brickenden, Oisin Mullen. But Matt, yourself, I mean, what did you make of Dublin? Just a bit of a farce as well.
It was I get Luke's point there about Mayo and Galway building up through the divisions. But when you look at, for example, my own county, Cork, we went down to Division 2 in, I think, 2017. We haven't got back to Division 1 since. And regrettably, our team has actually got worse. And we're a big county with big resources. So, look, it could go that way as well. I don't think it'll go that way with Dublin necessarily, but that's a danger that it could slide down fast if it doesn't halt as quick as possible. And originally I was supposed to give Dublin maybe an F, but taking your points into consideration, I'd probably give them a D as well, I think. Look, they brought in new players, as Luke rightly said there, and Division 2, not really the end of the world. It's going to be a tough division to get out of. Derry, Kildare, very tough teams there. So it'll be a challenge for Dublin next year, and I suppose the Leinster Championship will be the most interesting in years.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the one thing that Luke said was, even in the Armagh game, though I know that he was mentioning about the full panel and everything, but if you look back at what I said after the Armagh game, the only two at the time that I could really say they're going to come back in and make a difference was McCarthy and Conor O'Callaghan and James McCarthy are the only two that I would have looked at the time. I know Conor Costello went off injured early in that Armagh game. He was making a difference, and he did when he came back. But I didn't see that there was enough players to come back in that Armagh game that we could make up the gap to Kerry, and I still don't think that. So moving on, I mentioned Kerry there. Matt, I'm coming to you for this one. Kerry, of course, looking like the real deal now. I mean, Clifford's performance in the league final has people talking about him potentially as one of the best that we've ever seen. What did you make of them yourself?
Clifford was absolutely superb, and he's been superb throughout the league campaign. I think people are beginning to notice him only now. He scored only the 528 so far in the league, 522 for play. Like, the guy is absolutely, he's a freak. He's an unbelievable player in general, and it's an obvious save for Kerry. They blitzed everyone really, both Tyrone in the last game, but to be honest, I don't think that was a worry. In Fitzgerald Stadium, I think Tyrone were much more up for the game, but Kerry just absolutely flawless this league campaign. Even the forwards around Clifford, Gady performed very well in the league final. Tony Brosnan, we thought he would automatically be in the team to play, but Gady stepped up and did very well. Micheál Burns, coming off the bench, did very well as well. Stephen O'Brien, like, the abundance of talent in the forward line is unbelievable, as it always is with Kerry, to be fair. But what they've added is defensively as well. Jason Foley, I know Clifford's been superb, but arguably Jason Foley's been Kerry's player of the league. I know I've criticised him in the past, but he's been absolutely brilliant at full back, rejuvenated his game, definitely. Ty Morley's been excellent. Even the goalkeeper, Shane Ryan, had an excellent game against Mayo. So there's a lot of positives to take for Kerry. Even Gavin White coming back into the team, a new Jack McCaffrey more like. Kerry have been absolutely superb. They've strengthened nearly every position. The forwards were always good. It was the question of their defence. And now that's sorted, Kerry are on the road to yet another All-Ireland title.
Yeah, I would believe so. I'd put them as my favourites right now, definitely. I mean, the league final, they look so impressive. Gavin White, you mentioned there, I was so impressed with him. He just looked like he was able to just burn through Mayo's defence whenever he felt like it. And then on the other side, I mean, you've got the likes of Graham O'Sullivan. He's got serious pace as well. Paul Murphy still to come back into that side. And that was the one thing that I noticed in the league final, Luke. Mayo just had no answer to a Kerry side that was without Sean O'Shea and without Paul Murphy.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And I think it was an A kind of campaign for them in the league, and that we talked at the start, like kind of that we were a little bit worried that they were going to persist with the kind of the same fullback centre half back partnership, and we thought, look, we needed kind of new faces in there and stuff as well. But it just shows the kind of, I think, look, the defensive system, like under Peter Keane's management, just wasn't fully right, and that, look, the fullback and centre half back must have just been left exposed, because all of a sudden you see how few goals they're conceding. Like Paddy Tally's come in, and that, look, they're that bit tighter. They're just not shipping goals anymore. Teams just aren't running through the middle of them anymore as well. So look, I think at the start of the year, we thought that maybe it might have been a personnel thing, but it just shows that, look, the personnel was always right, and that it just needed the right system around them and stuff. And so that's, I think, the big thing to take from the league campaign from Kerry, is that they've managed to sort out that side of the ball. We knew that, like, when they get the ball up to the two Cliffords, to Sean O'Shea as well, they could score as much as they wanted. It's just, it was the question as if they were still going to allow teams to run through them. And look, if they're going to play Tyrone again in an All-Ireland semi-final, they won't be conceding 3 goals with the way they're set up at the moment, like, again. So that's why, look, I think that's a huge thing to take away from it. Like Matt's already talked about, like, Tony Brosnan coming through as well, and look, there's young players coming through as well, that, like, even other players, you've mentioned Graham O'Sullivan, Dylan Casey, Dan O'Donoghue, both got runs as well there. So, like, they've managed to get players through. They've managed to change the starting team up a little bit as well. They've sorted out the defensive side of it, and look, and they're scoring at free will. So yeah, I think, look, they couldn't have gone much better for in the league campaign. The only kind of blot on their card, I suppose, is that Tyrone came down to Killarney and were able to beat them. I know Kerry were through and everything like that as well, but I think that's what the stick that Jack O'Connor is going to beat them with for the next while, and to make sure that doesn't happen, because I think with the way the league's ended up here as well, I think Tyrone and Kerry, like, you can't look beyond the two of them at the moment, and they have to be the ones, I think, that once Tyrone get the full team out, the thing is, if Kerry can have the guts to get over them now.
Yeah, and I think as well, one thing that you didn't mention there was the midfield partnership between Dermot O'Connor and Jack Barry. That just grew game by game. Very impressed with that. And now they aren't as reliant on David Moran as they have been for the last few seasons. But moving on to one of the surprise packages, really, of the league. I know they got relegated, but Kildare put up quite a fight. I mean, I was thinking that, especially first year under Glenn Ryan, I was assuming that they might be a bit out of their depth. But then they hold Kerry to a draw in their first game. They had great wins against Dublin, and they had a great win against Monaghan as well. Matt, what did you make? What did you make of them? I mean, looking pretty good.
They are looking pretty good, yeah. I know they got relegated, but I suppose there is positives for Kildare to take. Jimmy Hoyland's been excellent. Dara Kieran, brilliant. Kevin Flynn for midfield. They aren't as reliant on Kevin Feely as they were in the past, maybe. Our Matheson did well as well. I suppose the worry for Kildare going forward, this is just a small worry now, the goal scoring. Like, they only scored 2 goals throughout the league campaign. Jimmy Hoyland got both of them. So they need more goal scoring talent if they're ever going to win a Leinster title in the next few weeks or even years. But overall, I give Kildare, I know they got relegated, but I'd say a C, maybe a B. I'm not, but I'd probably give them a C, to be honest. Just because they got relegated. But yeah, a very good league campaign for Kildare. And Glenn Ryan stamping his authority on the team. Didn't think he'd make this much of an impact after Jack O'Connor left. But in fairness to him, he's stepped up. The management team looks very good. And I think Kildare would take Leinster title over staying in Division 1 any day of the week. Like, they haven't won one since 2000, let's not forget. So could Kildare win it this year? It'll be a very interesting Leinster championship. But overall, yeah, I'd probably give him a C. Very good league campaign, but close, but no cigar, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that this is the best chance Kildare have had of winning the Leinster title since 2011. I remember that game, me and Luke, I think you remember that, the one where Callaghan scored the goal on a point to bring it back to a draw right at the end. That was pretty scary as a Dublin fan watching that, but then we got over the line with a bit of a dodgy free right at the end of the game. Bernard Brogan, I remember. But yeah, I mean, they look better than I thought they would. I mean, I thought that they would just kind of I thought they'd be on the wrong end of some hammerings. But looking back at their campaign, Luke, I'd almost say that there's a bit of regret there for Kildare. I mean, you look at the Tyrone game. I mean, Dara Kieran had that shot for goal right at the end that was saved by Morgan. Daniel Flynn got through for a goal a minute after he blazed it over the bar. That game was definitely there for the taking. They had the win there if they could just get over the line. So do you think that they'll feel a little bit like they left this kind of behind them?
Yeah, look, I'd be the same in that I'd give it a high C, kind of, because I think they were desperately unlucky to get relegated. I thought they'd done enough and played well enough in the league to stay up. But look, I suppose results went against them on the day. That look, if a few different things go a different certain way, then Kildare would have stayed up. But yeah, no, I think I could take your point on that. They probably looked. There was games they did leave behind them. The big concern I'd have for them is their away form was desperate, really, and that they at home they were fantastic, 2 wins and a draw, and then away they lost every game. So that's the worry for them going to championship. If they're going to go to a Leinster final, they'll have to play in Croke Park against the Dubs probably. So yeah, that's the question for them. I think is that. If they can bring Dublin to Newbridge, I'd absolutely give them a chance. But when it comes to Croke Park, wide open pitch in there as well, will they be able to? And look, I don't see it really at the moment. I think that when it gets to Croke Park, I still think the Dubs love too much of them, and that's the big challenge I think for Kildare going forward is if they can improve that away form. And you talk about next year, kind of how competitive Division 2 will be. There'll be some really really challenging away games in that as well. They'll have to travel up to the likes of Derry. And it's going to be long travels up there, tough kind of hostile environments to play in as well. And look, that's the problem for them. For them is that that's the question that I'm left with after the league. But look, I think absolutely the amount of players they've got through as well. They've moved away from some players that were kind of mainstays of the team, that they've replaced them with new fellas as well. So yeah, I think that, look, the big positives, great first kind of league campaign. Just the only thing that sours it is the fact that they were relegated on the last day, probably in unfortunate circumstances. The only other thing I would say as well is that it's kind of an interesting one, but they might actually be a more balanced and well-rounded team without Daniel Flynn, because he didn't play in that Monaghan game. And you look at the full forward line, Derek Kerwin, Jimmy Hyland, Paddy Woodgate, and it just seems to have that bit more balance to the team and to the forward line without him. So that's the thing. The other question is how can they manage to fit him in without disrupting kind of the forward line and without kind of moving somebody out of position, and just keep making sure that it's kind of all harmonious up there.
Yeah, that's a good point that you made. And I've always felt like when Kildare seemed to have Daniel Flynn, then they seemed to just rely on him to do it on his own type thing. So, I mean, yeah, I take your point there about the balance, but I still think he absolutely has to start for them. I mean, he's an absolute gem of a player. And yeah, Luke, I'll rebound right back to you here with Monaghan, the team that sent Dublin down, Jack McCarron with that late free. Again, a mad campaign for Monaghan. Once again, they found themselves relegated as it headed into stoppage time, but then they managed to pull themselves out of the fire. They just did it in a weird way. They looked like they threw the game away against Dublin, and then they got that free at the end, but they managed to stay up. What did you make of them?
Yeah, again, it's the same as Donegal. It's a strange campaign where we didn't probably learn a whole lot new about them. It was probably the same. That it was just a classic kind of Monaghan League campaign. They just do enough to stay up, I suppose. So look, probably another high C in that they looked very poor for large parts of it. After the Kildare game, when they were 24 points pulled past them, I think everybody just accepted, look, this is them going down. So they've managed to mix like the really poor and then really good as well into it. So they're just a very, very difficult team to read. Going into championship as well, they could pick up a bit of momentum, but then they could just not show up the next day as well. So it's a tough one for them to judge where exactly they are at the moment. So I'd kind of hover in the middle with a C. They'll be happy with some of the players that have come through as well, particularly Gary Mohan, who I think he was the big find for them really as well. He looks really, really good. And look, if they can keep McCarron firing as well and take that bit of extra pressure off Conor McManus, look, then happy days for them as well. So yeah, look, hard one to say too much about them, but I'll just probably say a C.
Yeah, I'd say the same. I think that they look good in spells. The Donegal game was one where they really reminded everyone how good they were. But then, Matt, the Kerry game was an absolute nightmare for them that day.
Yeah, it's again like Donegal, inconsistency with Monaghan. Good performances followed by terrible performances. Like even the performance against Kildare was another example. That was conceding 24 points. I know it was in Newbridge, but that was a terrible showing there. Against Dublin, they got the win. They needed it. Monaghan, let's be honest, they do this every year. They take it out to the last day and they survive when no one expects it. I think everybody nearly predicted Monaghan to go down this year, especially going to the last few games. But alas, they stayed up yet again. And that's I think, since 2015, they've always stayed up in Division 1. Like, I think Kerry, correct me if I'm wrong, no, but I think only Kerry have stayed in Division 1 longer than them at the moment. Like, that's a superb achievement there from Monaghan for such a small county as well. I think the same amount of size as, I think, Carlow in Leinster as well. So, like, that's an unbelievable achievement for Monaghan. And yeah, I'd probably give them a C because of their inconsistency, but yet again, brilliant achievements in surviving. And a few other players that take note, Jack McCarron, obviously, Micheál Bannigan played well. Our Mulligan, surprisingly, actually didn't score this league campaign, but he's definitely one to watch in the Ulster Championship. Sean Jones has got a superb goal against Dublin, is another one. Andrew Woods, a very good young player. So they're less reliant on McManus as they were in the past. That's a positive they can take going into the championship. So and they played down first, so they could play a second team for that game, let's be honest. So I suppose positives going into the championship despite some poor performances in this league campaign.
Yeah, I would agree. So I'm happy to go with a C or a C plus for Monaghan. And that takes us to our last team. And I'll come to you, Matt, for this one, Tyrone, the All-Ireland champions, but missing a lot of players going into the start of the league campaign. Obviously, no Tiernan McCann, no Mark Bradley, no Ronan O'Neill. And do you think their performance kind of showed a team that has almost kind of hit the top of the mountain and kind of lacked a bit of motivation, at the start of the league?
Well, I suppose loads of people mentioned at the start of the league that Tyrone would get better as the league went on, and that was definitely the case when you think about the performances against Mayo and Kerry towards the end, and the performances at the start of the league as well with Armagh and Monaghan. I know they drew against Monaghan, but scoring 9 points, that's not really impressive in any shape or form. Losing to Donegal as well wasn't great, and losing to Dublin, of course. But they got better as the league went on. Match day 6 and 7, they got themselves out of the trouble. Overall, though, I'd probably give Tyrone a D just because they survived the D and the F. Look, I don't think they'll win the All-Ireland this year. I just, the team with Owen Mulligan, Sean Kavanagh, all them, they didn't win 2 in a row. And what makes you think this team will win 2 in a row? So, yeah, I think Tyrone, I think they'll probably win the All-Ireland the next 2 or 3 years or so, but not just this year. I suppose Lee Brennan leaving the panel, Mark Bradley, Tiernan McCann is another one. Paul Donaghy over the last few weeks as well. Like, he's been an excellent player for Dungannon, Thomas Clarks and Tyrone over the last few years. So there are huge losses for Tyrone, and you have to question what is going on behind the scenes. It seemed to be a happy camp last year with Logan and Dooher in charge, with Hark on, but it's back to the same old story with Tyrone. I think I mentioned this in Aaron's channel as well. The thing about Tyrone, maybe some of their players, the likes of Bradley, the likes of Brennan, think they're better than what they are. Maybe they think we should start the team, so we're just not good enough to be in the Tyrone panel, so we'll just quit. I suppose that's the temperament issue that Tyrone need to fix. It's been there for years now. Ronan O'Neill, another example in the last few years. So definitely that aspect needs to be fixed. But overall, they survived. They didn't play particularly well. I think a D is probably fair.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm happy to go with a D for that. Luke, do you agree with that?
Yeah, look, I think the big problem with their league campaign is, as Matt was saying, the players leaving the camp. I think that's the real issue. That I think I'd give them a bit of leeway coming back in the first couple of games of the league. They were miles off it, but that's to be expected. They had probably a whole lot less work than done and everything as well. And I did feel that the performances improved as it went on. And look, I would read a lot into that when they had to win the last day out against Kerry, then they got their first choice 15 out and they won that game down in Killarney as well, which is the toughest place to play probably in Ireland with the travel and everything like in there as well. So if it was based on just kind of performance, I'd be kind of saying C, because by the end of the league, look, they've sorted themselves out. But I would be really concerned about all the extra members of the panel leaving, because all of a sudden now that's their bench is gone. Like, you look at the players that came on last year, Donaghy came on, Tiernan McCann came on and everything as well last year, All-Ireland final. The same impact's not there. I think if you look at their first choice 15 and compare it to Kerry's, I think it's pretty equal. I think, look, they're maybe lacking the David Clifford, but I still think they have a better defence than Kerry, and they've better keeper. They're better probably around the middle as well. But yeah, I would be just concerned about the bench now. I still think that, like, on paper, that they could go toe to toe with Kerry with that first choice 15, but yeah, that's the big worry, and that's like the questions are what's going on behind the scenes that's causing it, and and it's kind of led to a lot of to a lot of kind of attention, I suppose, from the media as to people looking in at the camp. Is the camp okay? Is there something wrong there and stuff like that as well? So that's a distraction they could have done without. So yeah, look, I'd be happy enough to agree with that. Just based on playing, I'd be saying C, because they sorted out towards the end. But yeah, you can't really look past all that extra sort of stuff that's gone on too. As well, just the Armagh game with the 4 red cards didn't help as well for the attention that they got from that as well. So just between all those things, I'd be happy to agree with that.
Yeah, I'm happy to go with that grade, 4th round, certainly. Matt, I'll come to you for Mayo. What did you make of them this year?
Look, it was a crazy year for Mayo. They performed very well up until the league final, and then obviously the league final they stuttered and they got absolutely annihilated. But at the same time, I think Mayo one eye was towards, or even both eyes were towards, the game against Galway. That's a more crucial game for them. Overall, it's a tough one for Mayo. I'd probably give them a B just because they got to the league final. Maybe it was expected, whatnot, but look, they had a few injury problems themselves. Brendan Harrison, Dermot O'Connor got injured as well. Tommy Conroy, of course, getting injured for NUIG didn't help their cause whatsoever. So, but Cillian O'Connor coming back into the team, that's a positive for them. Darren McHale coming back now, Aidan Orme in the team as well. James Carr came back over the last 2 match days as well. So there is positives for Mayo. There are players coming back. The problem is the other end of the spectrum, other players are getting injured. So Mayo have to get that balance right. They have to get all their players fit. But overall, I think it was a decent league campaign up until the final, of course. I'd probably give him a B.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. I think they were very, very solid right up until the league finals, but the league finals kind of left a bit of a bitter taste in the mouth about Mayo's campaign. Luke, would you agree with that?
Yeah, look, I think it was a similar one in that they've mixed kind of good moments with really poor kind of moments as well, and that there is some real concerns, I think, for Mayo going into it as well. I'd be like, I know they've been unlucky with the injuries as well, but I think defensively, look, they're fine, and that the thing is they've managed to find the players they found are defenders, kind of. So, like, you look at Michael Plunkett's probably the big standout for them as well. I know midfield, Jordan Flynn looks great in there too, but I'm still worried about the forward line, and that I still don't think they have a half forward line. And I think, look, they needed to find half forwards and you're going into championship as well. Like, with the style of play that they want to play, direct, fast running, I just don't think Aidan O'Shea in the half forward line works kind of in there as well for the style that they want to play. If they want direct running as well, that I just don't think he fully works in that spot right there. Like, they'll have Dermot O'Connor back, and then they've got another gap beside him in the wing forward. And I just don't think they found the appropriate players for that as well. I know they put a lot of time into the likes of Aidan Orme, giving him game time as well. But like, I rewatched the league final against Kerry, and with his possessions as well, he kicked 3 wides. He was turned over as well. And then for the goal at the end, Jason Foley, he just completely let him go as well. So untracked up the field. So, like, I think that the worry is, like, if these players are up to the required level. There was a lot of optimism about Jack Carney as well, that he played well in some of the league games that didn't fully matter as much. And then when it came to the league final as well, look, didn't perform at the same level. Jason Doherty wasn't performing at the same level as well. So, like, that's the question, is if the forwards are able to perform at the highest level, and these fellas are coming through. I think James Carr is a definite option. I think he's really got something about him, and that he should be starting up with Cillian O'Connor and Ryan O'Donoghue. But I just think there's 2 positions in the half forward line that need to be filled, and I just don't think they found players to occupy those spots. Like, defensively, I think they're perfect defensively in that they can go with that half back line if they're all fit, of Durkin, Mullen and McLaughlin, and that's as strong as you're going to get. But I just worry about that half forward line and maybe one spot in the full forward line.
Yeah, I would agree with pretty much everything that you've said there. I think it's interesting to see, will they go with Robbie Henley or will they stick with Rory Byrne, that was in the league finally, made some good saves. Lads, that is the wrap on our league campaign of grading each team in Division 1. Matt, thanks for coming on with me and Luke today.
No bother at all, lads. Happy to help.
Lovely. All right, lads, that is this episode on the Play On GAA, and we hope you enjoyed it. Until the next video, guys, here on Play On GAA, take care.